What if I told you that eating a perfectly clean, a beautiful organic salad right before you go to sleep might actually be the exact reason your brain is failing to wash away the plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease?
Yeah, it's a terrifying thought, honestly, because we usually think about health in these very linear mechanical terms, right?
Exactly. Like, we treat human biology like a car engine.
Yeah.
You put in good fuel, you change the oil, and you just assume it's going to keep humming along for 100 years.
Right, but human biology just it doesn't play by simple mechanical rules, and frankly, just extending lifespan without extending health span is, well, it's a hollow victory.
Totally. I mean, we don't just want to add years to the clock while sitting perfectly preserved in a garage somewhere. For anyone listening to this right now, your goal is peak performance. You want your brain and your body out on the track, functioning at absolute just peak capacity.
Oh, absolutely. And when you step into the world of advanced longevity, you quickly realize that the standard maintenance manual we've all been handed is fundamentally flawed. We are dealing with a biological landscape that thrives on nuance and specific timing and hormetic stressors.
Well, today we are pulling from a highly detailed, comprehensive source text called Mastering Metabolic Vitality and Cognitive Longevity. I'm your host, and I'm here with a resident expert. And our mission for this deep dive is to extract the most powerful, non-obvious strategies from this protocol to help you completely optimize your own hidden biological systems.
Yeah, and we're going to see a massive recurring theme today because true longevity isn't about doing more. It's not about, relentless cardio or blindly swallowing 100 different supplements every morning.
Right.
It is about being incredibly strategic with how you stress your body and, crucially, how you step out of its way to let it recover.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the physical engine itself, your metabolism. We've always been told that weight management is just this simple math equation, right?
Well,
Eat less, move more.
the classic advice, which is so outdated.
Right, but this protocol introduces protein-sparing modified fasting, or PSMF, which completely flips that outdated advice by focusing intensely on the biochemical type of fuel you're consuming.
Yes, so the protocol recommends dedicating just 1 to 3 non-consecutive days a week to this PSMF style of eating.
And what does that actually look like on a plate?
Well, on those specific days, your diet shifts to become ultra high in protein but severely restricted in both dietary fat and carbohydrates. So, we are talking about utilizing very lean sources. Think egg whites, skinless chicken breast, lean white fish.
Got it.
And the science anchoring this approach relies on the thermic effect of food, which is basically the amount of energy your body has to expend just to digest, absorb, and dispose of the nutrients you eat.
I find the biochemistry of this fascinating.
Hmm.
Because, all calories are absolutely not created equal when they enter the human digestive tract. Dietary fat is incredibly easy for the body to process.
Right, it essentially just glides right through the system. You only expend about 3% of the calories you consume just to digest that fat.
3%. Wow. But protein is a completely different structural beast. Amino acids are bound together by incredibly tough peptide bonds.
Exactly.
Breaking those bonds, transporting the amino acids, and dealing with the nitrogen removal requires massive amounts of cellular energy. So protein has a thermic effect of 30%.
Yeah, and that structural complexity is the secret weapon here. If you eat 100 calories of pure protein, your body is forced to burn 30 of those calories, simply performing the biochemical heavy lifting of breaking it down.
It's essentially like paying a 30% metabolic tax just to process the fuel you put in. You're forcing the internal engine to run hot.
That's a great way to put it. And by stripping away the carbohydrates and fats on these 1 to 3 days, you create a very low insulin environment while driving your protein to energy ratio through the roof.
And the protocol references clinical experts like Vanessa Spina and Dr. Ted Neichman here, right?
Yeah. Yes, they explain the dual mechanism of this. First, the constant influx of amino acids protects your skeletal muscle from being cannibalized.
Which is huge.
Right. And second, because you are denying the body its easy fuel sources, fat and carbs, it has to look internally. It violently shifts into burning your stored visceral body fat to make up the energy deficit.
There is a brilliant story in the text about Craig Emmerich, who is this well-known keto adaptation expert that perfectly illustrates this trap.
Oh yeah, his story is wild. So he was eating a classic high-fat ketogenic diet, heavy cream, lots of cheese, fatty cuts of meat.
Right. And during a period where he was largely sedentary, he actually gained 20 to 25 pounds, which is crazy because he was technically in nutritional ketosis. He was producing ketones, but his weight completely stalled.
Yeah, he fell into a trap that catches a lot of people in the low-carb space. He was providing his body with so much exogenous dietary fat that his cells never had a metabolic reason to tap into his endogenous fat, his stored body fat.
Ah, so the energy demand was just entirely met by his meals.
Exactly. So to break the stall, Emmerich shifted to a strict, low-fat, zero-carb carnivore protocol. He basically lived on ahi tuna and poke.
Just raw fish, practically.
Yeah. And by forcing that extreme high-protein, low-energy ratio, his body had no alternative. It immediately aggressively oxidized his own fat stores. He shed the entire 20 pounds in just 4 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
And because of the massive protein intake, he retained every ounce of his lean muscle mass.
That is such a highly targeted strategy, especially to prevent age-related sarcopenia, that dangerous muscle wasting that plagues us as we age, while simultaneously incinerating stubborn belly fat.
Absolutely.
But while optimizing the physical engine with protein is crucial, we have to look higher up the chain. Our most energy-hungry organ is the brain. I mean, it counts for only 2% of our body weight, but demands 20% of our resting energy.
It's an energy hog, for sure.
Yeah, and as we age, especially for the women listening to this, the brain requires an entirely different biological fuel strategy.
This is a massive focal point in the protocol, specifically for women navigating perimenopause and menopause. The text strongly advocates for evaluating and replenishing estradiol levels early in this biological transition.
Using transdermal or oral estradiol, right? Paired with other necessary hormones.
Exactly. And this isn't just a conversation about merely managing hot flashes or night sweats. We are talking about preventing something called glucose hypometabolism.
The cellular mechanics of this are stunning, because most people think estrogen receptors are confined just to the reproductive organs.
Right, but in reality, they are densely packed throughout the brain and heavily integrated into the mitochondria, which are the powerhouses inside our cells.
So estradiol is essentially the ignition key that allows the brain's mitochondria to pull glucose out of the bloodstream and convert it into ATP, or cellular energy.
Yes, and when estrogen levels naturally plummet during perimenopause, the brain loses that ignition key. The neurological and metabolic reorganization that follows is profound.
So the brain literally loses its ability to efficiently burn glucose.
Yeah, the fuel is flowing right past the cells in the bloodstream, but without sufficient estradiol signaling those mitochondrial receptors, the brain cells cannot absorb and metabolize it. They literally begin to starve.
That is terrifying.
It is. And this state of glucose hypometabolism is the biological root cause behind the severe brain fog, the sudden onset anxiety, and crippling sleep disturbances that define the perimenopausal transition for so many women.
But restoring that estradiol turns the cellular machinery back on. The clinical data from experts like Dr. Howard Hodes, who is the chief of cardiology at USC, backs this up aggressively.
Oh, absolutely. His research demonstrates that optimized estradiol therapy not only restores brain energy, but significantly reduces plaque accumulation in the carotid arteries.
Wow.
Yeah, it halts early bone loss, and it actually extends overall survival by 2 to 3 years.
And the subjective patient experience of getting this fuel source back is incredibly vivid. The sources share a story from Dr. Kelly Casperson about a patient who was just drowning in fatigue and memory lapses.
Right, and they optimized her estradiol and testosterone. And when the patient returned, she described the transition by referencing the movie The Wizard of Oz.
I loved this part.
She said her brain went from those flat black and white scenes in Kansas instantly back into full, vibrant technicolor.
It perfectly describes the restoration of the brain's primary metabolic pathway. The lights literally turn back on at a cellular level. So what does this all mean? Wait, if hormonal shifts and chemical availability dictate so much of our brain's physical energy and structure, does that mean cognitive decline is just a chemical inevitability?
Well,
Like if you have the right hormones, do your physical day-to-day behaviors even matter anymore?
oh, they definitely matter. The behavioral side is just as critical as the chemical side. Hormones provide the raw metabolic fuel, sure, but your behaviors physically build and maintain the structural architecture of the neural networks.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the biohacking pioneer Dave Asprey addresses this in the text through the concept of active cognitive engagement, because there is a deeply ingrained assumption that all forms of sitting are equally destructive to our health.
Right, sitting is the new smoking. We always hear that.
Exactly. But a landmark 24-year study published in the journal Alzheimer's and Dementia completely shattered that idea. Researchers tracked the television watching habits of over 1,700 adults in their early 50s and then subjected them to MRI brain scans in their mid-70s.
And the physiological decay they found in the television watchers was severe.
It was.
The individuals who spent their midlife engaged in mindless, passive television watching exhibited massive white matter damage. Their frontal and occipital lobes, the regions governing complex planning, decision-making, and visual processing, had physically shrunken.
Yeah, the neural pathways literally atrophied from a lack of electrical stimulation. But the control group is what makes this study mind-blowing.
Because they sat for the exact same number of cumulative hours.
Right. Exactly. The distinction was entirely in the cognitive demand. The control group spent their sitting hours doing actively engaged desk work. So analyzing complex data, writing, solving difficult problems.
And their scans.
That group showed absolutely zero brain shrinkage and no white matter damage. What's fascinating here is that a physically still body paired with an actively engaged brain creates a completely different biological environment than a still body paired with a passive brain.
Because the active thinking forces neurons to fire, which maintains the protective myelin sheath around the nerves and prevents the brain from pruning those connections.
Right. It perfectly mirrors resistance training for your skeletal muscle. You have to force the tissue to adapt to a load.
So if we look at a cognitive architecture, you need active daytime engagement to build the physical connections and optimized hormonal fuel to power them. But none of those daytime gains become permanent unless your body transitions into profound nighttime recovery to consolidate the architecture and clear out the metabolic waste. And according to the protocol, the vast majority of us are accidentally sabotaging this exact mechanism.
We really are. We sabotage it by ignoring the nervous system's requirements for deep sleep. The protocol mandates a strict 3-hour sleep fast.
A sleep fast.
Yeah, you have to completely stop consuming calories 3 full hours before your head hits the pillow. You can have unsweetened herbal tea or pure electrolytes, but absolutely nothing that requires gastrointestinal processing.
Which goes back to the organic salad analogy from the intro. Digestion is a massive, resource-heavy biological operation. When you eat, your body has to divert significant splanchnic blood flow to the gut, releasing a cascade of enzymes and insulin.
Exactly. This forces your autonomic nervous system to stay locked in a sympathetic active state. It keeps your core body temperature artificially elevated.
And that prevents your primary stress hormone, cortisol, from dropping to its natural nighttime baseline.
And that elevated cortisol is the primary issue. A deep plunge in cortisol is the biological trigger that opens your brain's primary recovery window. When you fast for 3 hours, your cortisol drops, and the brain activates the glymphatic system.
The glymphatic system, which is like the brain's internal plumbing.
Right. During this phase, the glial cells in your brain actually shrink in size by up to 60%. This physical shrinking creates space for cerebrospinal fluid to literally wash through the brain tissue.
Sweeping away the amyloid plaques and tau proteins that accumulate during daytime cognitive function.
Yes. And if your cortisol stays high because you ate, a bowl of organic berries at 9 p.m., those glial cells never shrink, and the wash cycle never happens.
That's wild. The text brings up Dave Asprey's 2-decade, $2 million biohacking journey. He admitted he used to eat what he considered a very clean meal right before bed, assuming he was giving his body high-quality repair materials.
Which logically makes sense, but biologically is a disaster. Once he finally understood the autonomic impact of digestion and implemented the 3-hour fast, his biometrics completely transformed.
His sleep tracker showed a massive spike in deep sleep, right?
Yeah, his resting heart rate plummeted, and those frustrating 3 a.m. wake-ups just vanished. And the clinical literature strongly supports this mechanism. A study out of Northwestern University took 39 adults and simply shifted their meal timing.
They didn't even change what they were eating, did they?
No, they didn't change the macronutrients or the total calories. They just ensured all eating stopped 3 hours before sleep. The resulting data showed significantly lower overnight cortisol levels, highly improved heart rate variability, and incredibly stable morning blood sugar.
Okay, so if the sleep fast acts like closing the kitchen early so the nighttime cleaners can actually come in and do their jobs, what specific tools do those cleaners need to function?
That's a great question. The protocol points directly to intracellular magnesium as the master tool. We are talking about a mineral that acts as a non-negotiable cofactor for over 600 distinct enzymatic and biochemical reactions.
600?
That's insane. It is the limiting factor in the generation of ATP, and it is entirely necessary to synthesize serotonin in your gut. But the crisis we face today is severe systemic depletion.
Because of our lifestyle, right? Chronic psychological stress, intense exercise, and high caffeine intake cause us to excrete magnesium at an alarming rate.
Exactly. And when your intracellular magnesium levels drop, the body goes into a triage state. It essentially shuts down long-term repair pathways like DNA repair and neurogenesis just to keep your heart beating.
Wow. The story of Wade Lightheart, the founder of Biooptimizers, really highlights this cellular crisis. His story is actually kind of terrifying. He was dealing with debilitating brain fog, chronic stress, and just massive mood crashes.
Right, so he went to a clinic for a comprehensive EEG scan, and the neurologist told him his brain's electrical activity looked like that of a 70-year-old man.
And the wild part is, he was already taking a magnesium supplement.
Yeah, but standard single-form magnesium oxide, or citrate, just pulls water into the gut and causes osmotic diarrhea long before it ever saturates the cells.
It just passes right through you.
Exactly. Tissues throughout the body utilize different amino acid transport channels. Wade realized this and ran a radical orthomolecular experiment on his own biology. He sourced 7 highly bioavailable chelated forms of magnesium.
Like magnesium L-threonate.
Yes, which specifically crosses the blood-brain barrier, and he used magnesium malate, which drives directly into the Krebs cycle in the muscle tissue. He added glycinate, taurate, and others.
And he started megadosing them, right?
Yeah, he began megadosing these 7 forms sequentially until he reached bowel tolerance, which is the point where the body physically cannot absorb anymore.
By saturating his cells across all those different transport channels, he completely rebooted his electrical system. He eliminated the brain fog, lowered his resting heart rate, and restored his EEG scans to a youthful state.
It's an incredible turnaround.
So, fasting and megadosing minerals are highly effective, passive biological interventions. But what if you are listening to this right now, your stress levels are spiking, and you need to take active, immediate control of your nervous system?
Well, the protocol offers a highly tactical intervention called the vortex sequence.
What vortex sequence?
Yeah, this is a multi-stage morning breathing and movement protocol designed to manually train your autonomic nervous system. It forces your biology through a series of extreme controlled shifts.
Break that down for us.
Okay, so step 1 is awaken. While lying in bed, you perform 2 to 3 minutes of gentle coherence breathing. That's 6 seconds in through the nose, 6 seconds out. This stimulates the vagus nerve to establish a calm baseline.
Then you immediately redline the system.
Yeah.
Step 2 is activate. You get out of bed and perform 100 explosive jump squats.
100 of them, yeah.
Deep inhale on the way down, explosive exhale on the way up. You are intentionally spiking your sympathetic nervous system, flooding the body with lactic acid and adrenaline.
Right. And then step 3 is the flush. You sit down and execute a round of cyclical hyperventilation, aggressively blowing off carbon dioxide.
Which causes temporary vasoconstriction, right?
Followed by reflex vasodilation, yes.
Yeah.
And you finish with a deep breath hold, creating a brief state of hypoxia that forces the brain to hit the reset button.
And finally, step 4, concentrate. You return to that slow, 6-second coherence breathing to circulate the newly generated energy and pull the body back into a parasympathetic state.
Exactly.
It acts exactly like a manual transmission for your autonomic nervous system. Instead of being stuck in the chronic low-grade stress of checking emails and sitting in traffic, you are grabbing the stick shift and aggressively forcing your biology into first gear, then fifth gear, and back down to neutral.
That's a perfect analogy. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this specific capability, autonomic flexibility, is paramount. The speed at which your nervous system can toggle between a sympathetic stress response and parasympathetic recovery is measured by heart rate variability.
High HRV.
Yes. High HRV is consistently recognized as one of the single greatest biological predictors of longevity and all-cause mortality.
And the healing applications of this push-pull dynamic are staggering. The text details the journey of performance coach Nick Sweeney.
Oh, this story is amazing.
Right. He suffered a catastrophic foot injury, and orthopedic surgeons told him he would likely never walk normally again. But he bypassed standard physical therapy and utilized severe autonomic training to rebuild the tissue.
Yeah, he applied an ice pack directly to the injury, utilizing cold exposure to force the local blood vessels to violently constrict.
Simultaneously, he performed deep, intense hyperventilation breath work, which forces the vascular system to dilate.
He essentially turned his vascular system into a localized mechanical pump. The breathwork pushes highly oxygenated blood toward the tissue, while the extreme cold acts as a physical barrier, creating immense cellular pressure.
That targeted vascular training aggressively flushed out free radicals, saturated the damaged fascia with oxygen, and accelerated the tissue repair. He regained full mobility, completely defying the surgical prognosis.
And he subsequently used the exact same nervous system regulation techniques to help his mother reverse severe menopausal vascular issues.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. We've talked about all these incredible optimizations, dialing in the thermic effect of protein, demanding cognitive engagement, replacing estradiol, respecting the 3-hour sleep fast, saturating your cells with magnesium, and manually driving your nervous system.
It's a lot, but it's powerful stuff.
It is, but the protocol delivers a stark warning. Absolutely none of this matters if your cells are secretly on fire.
Ah, yes. The protocol refers to this as the 6 rivers of inflammation. We are talking about latent, silent, systemic inflammation that pools into an ocean of chronic disease.
So if you are doing all the right things but still struggling with persistent joint pain, unexplained fatigue, or treatment-resistant brain fog, you cannot biohack your way out of it.
You really can't. You have to investigate hidden cellular insults using a comprehensive diagnostic tool like the 16-point MSIDS checklist.
And MSIDS stands for Multiple Systemic Infectious Disease Syndrome. These rivers of inflammation are the exact things standard allopathic medicine misses entirely.
Completely. We are talking about tick-borne pathogens that hide inside your cells like Lyme, Bartonella, and Babesia.
We are looking at mold mycotoxins from water-damaged buildings that severely damage mitochondrial DNA, heavy metal toxicity like mercury and lead, and severe intestinal hyperpermeability, better known as leaky gut.
These invisible toxins act as direct mitochondrial poisons. They keep your innate immune system perpetually activated, which completely drains your body's master antioxidant, glutathione.
And once glutathione is depleted, you experience runaway oxidative stress and severe neuroinflammation.
Right. Trying to optimize your hormones or build muscle while these pathogens are active is like installing a massive turbocharger on a sports car that has a fuel leak and no oil. The engine is just going to tear itself apart faster.
Dr. Mark Hyman, the Chief Medical Officer of Function Health, lived through this exact nightmare.
He did.
At age 36, he was a brilliant physician who suffered a catastrophic physical and cognitive collapse. He developed crippling brain fog, severe muscle fasciculations, and runaway autoimmune antibodies. His colleagues in traditional medicine had absolutely no answers.
So he had to investigate his own deep biology. And he discovered he had massive systemic mercury toxicity from living in China, severe mold mycotoxins from a wet basement, a completely degraded gut microbiome, and latent tick infections.
All of it at once.
Yeah, he had to systematically chelate the heavy metals using a specialized drug called DMSA, eradicate the infections, and slowly rebuild his intestinal lining before his cognitive function returned.
His recovery proves that what looks like irreversible cognitive decline is often a reversible symptom of systemic toxicity.
It's a huge paradigm shift.
And the clinical data emerging on this is revolutionary. The text highlights a massive medical breakthrough published in April 2026 in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease Reports by Dr. Richard Horowitz.
Oh, this study. He proved that systematically attacking these underlying MSIDS factors yields miraculous results.
The methodology and the numbers in this study are absolutely staggering.
They are. Dr. Horowitz utilized a highly targeted 9-month oral dapsone combination therapy. Dapsone is an intracellular drug capable of penetrating the protective biofilms that these persister pathogens build around themselves.
And by dismantling the biofilms and clearing the latent infections, this 9-week therapy reversed p-tau217, which is currently the most sensitive and highly specific biomarker for Alzheimer's disease. It reversed it by a staggering 63%.
63%. It's almost unbelievable. And he also utilized this exact methodology to save his own wife, who had been suffering from severe chronic Lyme, mycotoxin illness, and mast cell activation syndrome.
Her immune system was so hyperreactive that eating basic foods like bone broth caused violent vomiting and debilitating migraines, right?
Yes. And by clearing the infectious load with dapsone and aggressively managing histamine triggers, she achieved a perfect, symptom-free remission that has lasted for over 8 years.
It fundamentally changes how we view aging and disease. It proves you have a massive amount of agency over your cellular destiny.
You really do.
So let's synthesize the architecture of this protocol. We started by utilizing the 30% thermic effect of protein in a PSMF diet to aggressively strip away visceral fat while shielding skeletal muscle.
Yep.
We learned to swap passive television for active cognitive problem solving to literally preserve the physical white matter tracks in our frontal lobes. For the women listening, we explored how restoring estradiol acts as the ignition key to cure glucose hypometabolism.
Crucial step.
We respected the strict 3-hour sleep fast to drop cortisol and activate the brain's fluid wash cycle, while saturating our tissues with 7 specific forms of magnesium to power the cellular machinery. We took manual control of our autonomic nervous system with the cold and breath work of the vortex sequence.
And finally,
we uncovered the necessity of putting out the hidden cellular fires of mold, metals, and persistent pathogens using targeted therapies.
this raises an important question for you to consider today. As you look at this vast, interconnected landscape of metabolic and cognitive health, which of these specific pillars are you currently ignoring?
Right.
Are you agonizing over your sleep tracker data while your cells are quietly battling heavy metals? Are you doing the right physical workouts but starving your brain of the hormonal signaling it needs to metabolize energy?
All these systems are talking to each other constantly. That leads me to one final thought for you to chew on. Something not explicitly in the text, but the logical next step of everything we've just discussed.
Okay, I'm listening.
We've spent this time breaking down how to manually manipulate these complex systems using diet, breath, specific nutrient timing, and targeted drugs. But imagine a near future, one that is rapidly approaching, where wearable technology evolves beyond passively tracking your heart rate. Imagine a localized transdermal wearable that continuously monitors your intracellular magnesium levels, tracks your latent inflammatory cytokines, and measures your cortisol in real time. A system that automatically prompts you to execute a specific breathing sequence, initiate a fast, or release a microdose of a supplement at the exact biological millisecond your cells need it.
That would be a game changer.
Right. If we can achieve miraculous reversals, like shrinking Alzheimer's biomarkers by 63% manually today, what happens to human potential when our biology becomes seamlessly integrated with real-time AI optimization tomorrow?
That is wild to think about.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking hard questions, keep looking under the hood of your own biology, and keep exploring your metabolic vitality.